that, because the dragons, as you know, if you've had them around you, are pure love. They're probably the highest level of unconditional divine love that I felt of any being, next to having a direct connection with God, is how I always describe it. They are so present with love, with wisdom, with power, with all of it. And it's that awe-inspiring where you feel yourself open because they're so open. They're transparent. And they're just beaming all of it to assist us.
Welcome to Conversation for the Soul. I'm Linda Christine. Today our conversation is with Araya AnRa. She is a psychic, a healer, and also a dragon. Yes, you heard me right, a dragon. And we're going to hop right into it with today's conversation. Well, welcome, Araya, ray of sunshine. So beautiful to have you here. I am very honored and so excited that you are joining us today. Dragons had never been a part of my existence anywhere on this plane until earlier this year. I was at a full moon fire ceremony breath work that a friend of mine was holding back in February. And unbeknownst to me, I birthed 7 dragons, each one of them one of the colors of the chakra or colors of the rainbow, or however you want to view it. And I was just like so moved for like months afterwards. And then I sat going, what do these dragons want from me? Why are they here? I love them like they're my own children. They're so amazing. And I feel this deep, deep, deep connection to them. And then finally it came through for me about a month ago, and I am now doing dragon artwork. So I've been consuming anything and everything dragon I can find because I just don't know anything about them. So I don't know how I was guided to you. I must have just been divinely guided, and I found you on YouTube. And I've been consuming everything that you're putting out there. You are just such a deep portal of knowledge when it comes to these dragons. How did they come to you? How did this all start?
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for having me on. For me to have an opportunity to talk about dragons is always a plus in my book. So it gets me excited. It's something that finally has gone mainstream, is finally getting out in the world. And I'll go back and give a little history, but I did bring the book through to work with them. And I'll just flash this up now, but we can talk about it later. That when they started coming through to me, and then that was way back in fall of 2007. And I started working with them in about 2003. And it wasn't until 2018 that I started doing just the dragon stuff, full-time programs, classes, sessions, whatever, because I knew that it was in a chrysalis. I knew that it was waiting for the world to be ready for the energies. And even though we expected everything around 2012, there was a shift point in 2012, but everything since then has been the real unfolding. And so that's where the dragons are finally getting their opportunity to serve humanity in their final piece that they hold for humanity. And that's why they're getting more mainstream. They're a final piece and my whole body's getting, this is my full body tingles when we're on track. I get the full body tingles, so you'll see me do this. They hold the final keys. They really do, for everybody's ascension process, whether you are a star being, whether you're a unicorn, whether you're a fairy being from the Devic kingdom, it doesn't matter. There are those that are dragon that are more affected, like myself. And when you say you've got such a wealth of knowledge, well, it's because I am dragon. And so for me to get up even 5 years ago after I turned 50 and be on social media in mainstream talking about dragons, it's one of those things like, really, that's where I'm headed in my life. But it's what brings me joy, and it's what really is profound for me, in the sense that as I've come into that merge with my own dragon self, with my higher self aspect, I find that questions arise from those that are seeking, and the answers are just there, that we each get to our own merge point with ourselves, where we have the direct, pure knowing of our expertise, of our own innate wisdom. And for me, that's dragons. So to be able to share that is super exciting. So how did that evolve? And like you're like, that wasn't even like in my reality until this last year. But everyone's now waking up to that and going, wait a minute, this is now my reality. What is this dragon? Or they go to a massage therapist and the massage therapist says, there's a dragon in the room with us, or you have a dragon in your field. Like, you need to look into that. They're like, how do I look into that? What does that even mean? What does that signify? What do I do? So when I had my own awakening, it was my right after my 36th birthday. It was the fall of 2002, and everything in my being had said, quit your job. I was the director of a chamber of commerce in the little town of Wyoming where I lived. And I was like, okay, everything in my body's telling me to quit, but I don't know then what I'm going to do to pay my bills, feed all my animals, all that good stuff. And there was just this element of trust within it. And in that winter, everything gave me the opportunity to meditate for 1 to 2 hours every day. And that's when my full awakening happened. That's when my guides came and started revealing and working with me and reminding me of how I can move energy and what that realm is. And that in itself was new for me at that point. And now I look back and I think, isn't that just like remedial? Isn't that there's my preschool? And now I'm in graduate school, and I think it's so funny to look back on the trajectory since then. But in that time, my guides were telling me to start working with people, to start, doing auric healings and moving traumas out, densities out of their field. And so as I started with friends and family and people that I knew in the community. And that's when the dragons started showing up. They would show up in people's field. And then I had to slowly start to unravel, what does that really mean? What is this? And it was about 4 years later that the book actually came through. And that was a full awakening after I went to a workshop with a guy who was a mentor for me for a while. And we were in Hawaii. We were on the big island of Hawaii. And we had this function in a lava pool. And I was there as a participant for the weekend. And I was very clear, like, just let me be a participant. But when I met him, he said, oh, you're the dragon lady. You bring the dragons. You're going to have a role to play this weekend. And I was like, what? That's not possible. And he said, just let it be. And by the third day, the final day, I ended up being drawn in this pool of water that was separated from the ocean. And my large dragon self is in the Pacific down off the coast of Peru. And that's what I had merged with in meditation for years. Well, here comes this full body energetic experience in the ocean, because she was able to travel and meet me there in this pool that was being washed and filled by the waves coming in. And it was this very sacred lava pool that a lot of ceremony has been done in. So I find myself thrashing in the water, having this amazing experience, like a meditation, but full light, like, and I came up out of the water and I was seeing through her eyes. I was not seeing through my normal human eyes to look at shore. And all of a sudden I realized something big had shifted. And then I proceeded for the 12 women that were there as participants to do a womb activation with that dragon energy for each of them. And I realized that was something that was waking up within me, but also implanting the seeds for the expansion of that energy. It was finally time on the planet. So it's a slow awakening, but it's one of those things that once the dragons are in your field, as you know, probably prior to this year, Linda, your journey has been probably accelerating in the last couple of years. But for a long time, it was sort of drudgery. It was sort of like shadow work and weeks and emotions. And there was a lot of like drudging through the mud as we worked through and released a lot of the old heavier stuff. But then when the dragons show up, all of a sudden things start progressing really, really rapidly, because they're the final piece. They're the final keys, and they work very efficiently. They don't shortcut, but they move energy so quickly, which is why transformation starts to really happen quickly once they're in your field. And so my job here is to guide and mentor people through that process, to give them the tools they need to master it on their own, because I'm not a guru or anything like that. I'm just the guide who says, here's the tools you need. Now you step in your mastery and you get to grow up and go through your ascension. And it's fun. And it's amazing that my life is now pure joy with that, because the dragons, as you know, if you've had them around you, are pure love. They're probably the highest level of unconditional divine love that I felt of any being, next to having a direct connection with God, is how I always describe it. They are so present with love, with wisdom, with power, with all of it. And it's that awe-inspiring where you feel yourself open because they're so open. They're transparent and they're just beaming all of it to assist us. So there's just a little introduction of where it started for me, and from that, whatever questions that generated for you, feel free to throw them at me.
Yeah, I'd love for you to explain to people who may be new to this journey or just stumbling upon this, because I believe everybody finds the right thing when they need it at the right time. Explain how this fractal of you as a dragon is living in Peru, but yet here you are, Araya, sitting right here. How does
What a
that
great
work?
question. That's an amazing question, because when we start to understand the soul dynamics, each of us knows we have a soul, which some people call your higher self, your true self, who you be. It's this level of our origination point that we know exists, and that is something we're attaining to. In our ascension process, our goal is to merge with that. Well, if I'm one experience, and I don't know what your beliefs are on reincarnation and different experiences you may have felt you've had, memories you've had, I can go back and have solid conscious memory of lifetimes of star beings in different star systems, particularly Orion and the Pleiades. I have memories on different planets as dragon. I have lots of memories from this planet in different timelines where, like, I've been in a place and seen, like, standing there, been able to see through the timeline exactly what I was looking at several hundred or thousand years ago. I've had those experiences. So for me, coming into the awareness of, all right, here's this higher self, and it has a capacity to fractal out and have all these different incarnational aspects out experiencing things. And if time only exists here in 3D, then it's literally happening concurrently. That it's not, here you go, here's one, and then you come home, and here's another. It's all fractaling out, and there's a maximum capacity based on the level of your soul experience, meaning you might be a newly incarnated or created soul, or you might be a very ancient soul, and that ancient soul is going to have a lot more complexity and wisdom gained and experiences and memories than the new one, but it's just a matter of their configuration. So for me, the soul level is something that comes through to us in awareness as either a light fractal in color, as a sound vibration, as a geometric. It's got characteristics that is only me, that makes me unique and individual as a part of that greater one consciousness. But in that, if I'm a fractal here as Araya, and I know that I have a part of me out in some star system, and I can feel that, I can connect to it. When I get to a merge point with that higher self, I can actually start consciously connecting with those parts of myself that are still in form, that haven't merged back in yet. So there is a part of me that is within in the book. There is for the dragons. So the dragon within is hardback and paperback and digital in 3 different formats through the site dragonwithin.com. And in that, it explains about the Council of Mu. So there's 12 dragons, 13 technically, but 12 around one, that are in the tectonic plates of the planet. They're holding space. So if you look at the dragons as the grid keepers, the matrix keepers, they're the ones that when this universe was going to be created said, yep, we say yes, we'll volunteer and we'll hold the space. That's our mastery level. That's, we're good at physics and geometries and all that, and we're going to do that. And so each step down level had to be created, and they held it. So they are still holding that. And the core around Gaia's physical matter body is held by the 12 dragons of Mu, who are the ones that are the 4 elemental pairs and the 2 black and white, the black and white pairs. That makes 12, 6 pairs. And then the crystalline, everything with the dragons is 12 around 1 as a base geometry. And it's a format that we're ending now as we go through this ascension cycle. And we're moving into a different system as the Lyrans take over, as the dragons are complete with their service for this. Because once Gaia goes into 5D, they can release it. Anyway, we're getting off on a tangent there, which often happens because there's so much information.
Yeah, I like it though. Let's come back to that.
Okay, but in that, I have an aspect that is the water dragon, the female water dragon of those 12. that's why I have a role as guide mentor, like to wake up the dragons worldwide, not just those in human form that are incarnate, that come from a dragon realm and have that lineage within them, like a star being does, that, you know, they know their stars, they know they're dragons, they find me to get that woken up within them and activate it. So my piece is actually under the lower Pacific Ocean. And if you're to look at a map, like I describe it in the book, where they each lay in the planetary makeup. So that part of myself, when I first had a meditation to connect with her, and her name is Tana, and that's typically, I had to change my name on screen because it always says Tana in my classes and groups, because they know me as Tana. That's my dragon. And I was taken to her in meditation when she was still asleep. And it was because I was asleep and I was waking up, and I would be sitting next to her in this massive eye, like just sitting next to her eye, until I could feel movement behind it. And eventually she opened her eye. And this all happened before that merge in the ocean. But it was that connection point of heart to heart, soul level communication happening, where I knew that is my bigger aspect. It's a very unique relationship in that she is that dragon heart aspect of me, but she is also energetically within the template of the planet, which I probably shouldn't have even brought up because it confuses things. Most people's dragon heart is that higher self aspect that is maintained in a higher light body vibration here, and not necessarily part of the planet as well. I have an interesting triangulation, and there's a few beings that I know that have that. All of the 12 of them would have that. So when you look at a soul level, like how can I be Araya here in this human form and a dragon and potentially a fairy? And it's because of the ability of the soul to fractal off and have different experiences, because every experience is adding to the wealth of knowledge that a soul gains. That makes
Okay.
sense. I
Yeah.
probably
No,
been
it
to hold
does make
more
sense.
questions.
No, it does. It makes complete sense. And I'm going to go to a really weird place, but I live near Clearwater, Florida, and it's very
Yeah.
prevalent in my life. And I hate to bring it up because it's just such a, anyway, no judgment, right? Scientology is kind of their belief, if I understand it correctly, is has to do with bringing back soul fractals, which makes me wonder now, were they just ahead of the game here or what? Because there's this dark energy I feel around it, where it's not pure, like most people that I'm attracted to have this really bright light energy. So I'm just throwing that out there, see if it
Yeah,
lands
you know,
anywhere for you.
I don't know anything about Scientology other than that same hint, that same like sort of gut feeling of like there's something off.
Yeah.
There's an alignment that's energetically not quite aligned with where I am. And yeah, sitting in that place of knowing there's truth within all of the different religions or beliefs around the planet, and there might be slight misalignments, but they're all seeking through their own pathway. You know, they're
Yeah.
trying to find it, and they'll eventually get there. And they might have some realizations and have to tweak some things, or say, oh, I got what I needed from this. Now I need to go here. You know, even on my own path, I've done that and had to sit for quite some time because I was raised going to church. My family didn't continue going with me, but it was something that was so deep within me that I wanted to be close to God. I wanted to know about Jesus. I knew who he was. Like, I got to go and learn more. So I was a member of a church in high school as myself. Like, my family wasn't a member, and I was very staunch and adamant that I needed to go and be part of the youth group. And that was a big part of my life. And at the same time, all of this waking up within me was like, all right, where does that fit together? And so I would say at least 4 years, maybe even 5, I literally put everything on the back shelf. And this was about 2012 when I already had the dragons. I'd had teachings from different people. I've been learning a lot of different things around the world. And so I was exposed to Buddhism. I was exposed to Hindu. I was exposed to a little bit of Islam stuff. I was exposed to divine love stuff and all of these different things. And I said, all right, God, I'm going to put it all on the shelves and I'm going to let it percolate. And I'm just going to be right here until it assimilates and finds how it resonates together. Like, because I know there's pieces in all of it. And how does that fit? How can you exist here with the staunch beliefs of the church? And I know the truth of the dragons. I know the truth within it because I can feel it in my body. It's visceral.
Yeah.
And when it was so beautiful when the realization finally came that it was almost like God came and just said, I created the dragons true. You know, they're they're not different from me. Everything that's out there is part of my creation, good, bad, and different and ugly. It's all from me originally. So if you want to look at evil or darkness or beings of light, it's really all coming from me, and it's all trying to find itself back to me. So that was my revelation of like, yes, of course, God created the dragons, and the dragons are in service to God. I mean, they're the ones that when it was about, all right, let's create this universe, it was in service to that divinity that the dragon said, yes, we'll be the ones, we'll hold it. And I have conscious memory of that meeting with all the dragon commanders when they said yes. And it was amazing to me when I saw that memory, and I was like, oh my God, that's a solid memory. Whoa.
Wow.
So in that, your question about that specific branch, I don't know, but I do agree that there's something that feels misaligned to me, but it doesn't mean it's out of alignment for where those people need to go in this moment to find their path home. You know what I'm saying? Because we all come down to have different experiences. And just because mine at this phase of the journey is I'm a light, I'm a guide, I'm a mentor, doesn't mean I haven't been the dark player at some point in my journey, because I can't complete an ascension out of a polarized system unless I've been every side and every angle, so that I have the wisdom of every side and every angle to merge it back in and come home and know like, oh, that's what polarity was. That's what duality was. Okay. And then we go into a higher perspective.
Speaking of the polarity, there's got to be bad dragons then too. Good dragons and bad dragons. I have a friend who's like, trying to accept your whole dragon thing here that you're doing, but you know, she's brought up to believe dragons are of the devil. They're bad, like snakes. You know, and I'm like, there is no way what I am getting and what I am feeling is bad in any way, shape, or form. But you know, I honor where she's coming from and understand.
Exactly. And a lot of people have that. So this has been partly why the dragons waited until this time on the planet to really reveal. And it was interesting because I had an experience where I was the one of the 12 that would be embodied. I had the responsibility to wake up the rest and say, all right, humanity's at this stage again. Do we go forward, or do we like zero it out and start over? And unanimous vote, they're actually going to make it this time. We're going forward. And in that, there is this piece, this hurdle that the dragons, like, there's a common question of, well, why did the dragons recede? If the dragons used to live on the planet, or they were these helpers, where did they go? Why did they run away? Well, anybody would run away that's being hunted and chased and demonized all the time. They were there to help. They were never there to harm. And most often, like any other animal that gets cornered, they're going to defend themselves. They will never attack, but they defend. Like, yeah, I'm going to defend myself. So they got this bad rap in mythology and everything else. And if you look at most of our, and even coming from a Christian background, I can say very clearly, most of our religious practice, most of our religious text, most of our belief systems out there, a lot of it was about control mechanisms of the populace. And so a lot of the holidays were shifted and changed from their original light quotient, you might say, to then render them less powerful of light. And the demonization of the dragons was an intentional, let's make people afraid of them because they hold these keys. Let's demonize them. Let's hunt them. Let's make them the bad guys, just like the witches back in, the day. And so there's this piece of having to overcome that, where they're waiting in the land, and you will start, now that you've had them in your field, if I had you watch my planetary healing with the dragons class, you would start recognizing them all over around you and in the skies and in the mountains and in the lakes and go, whoa, they are waiting to reveal. They're waiting to come up out of the surface. They're in the inner realms of earth. They're in the surface and they're just waiting to be received by humanity. And so they're starting to wake up all over the planet because people are going and seeing them going, hey, I like you. I'll be your friend. I'm not going to hunt you. I'm good with you. And the more experiences that happens, the more awaken, the more available, the more come in. And there is that aspect of, are there bad dragons? Okay, so let's go back to that. There are bad dragons, but that just means that they've fallen out of the ability to make loving choices in every moment, just like bad humans. It's not so much bad as much as unloving. It's just a degree, it's like morphology. So are there dragons that are in places doing bad things? Yeah, potentially. They're not the ones here in service, but there are dragons incarnate in different places that are having experiences that are not aligned with love. There's also a very clear delineation that needs to be made between dragons and reptilian, which is Draco, which is a draconian system, which is not dragon. And that word alone, the use of that word, the naming of the system of Draco, where the reptilian bases are, is a huge piece of the misinterpretation of dragon energy by the masses that I think was intentional in the naming of that system. Because the reptilian energy, dragons and dinosaurs, and this was a piece that clicked in for me with there was a dinosaur display at our Discovery Museum here in Reno that was from the Natural History Museum, and it had this whole thing about the dinosaurs actually being more related to avian species than to reptilian species, and all of this proof of that. And I went, oh my goodness, that's why the dinosaurs and the dragons are so close. They're an avian species, and it makes so much sense when you realize their flight structure, their more hollow bone structure, their ability with such mass to fly, to lift off. And so that in itself, it's a whole different lineage, different ballgame altogether. And most people are afraid of that. They have dark experiences with Draco, with reptilian energies, and they are very, very different. So I always like to bring that in and make sure there's clarity of dragons are not from the Draco system. They are not reptilian in nature. They are not inherently of that lineage. And yes, I know some bad dragons. I've seen them. I've experienced them that are part of the reptilian system in Draco. It happened after the Orion Wars. That's a whole nother subject and like history lesson that we don't need to go into here. But there are beings in every system that have gone in to infiltrate, to learn, to be part of whatever. And so, yeah, there are some dragons in those places. But the majority, and those that are here on Earth, that are here in service as guides and guardians, just like guardian angels, the guides that you're assigned from birth as a human, you have angelic guides with you in a human format because that's what the human race has at birth. God sends in these angelic guides and guardians to be with them. But as you progress, you'll start to get guides and guardians from your home realm because they can activate the pieces of you to remember further back, higher up, vibrationally. So that was a great question because, yeah, there are bad dragons, but just like there's bad humans, it's the one bad seed that ruins the whole reputation, so to speak, or makes the whole batch seem bad when it's not the case.
Now, are all dragons from different star systems? Because I heard a galactic astrologer once say that the dragon lineage is from Draco. And I always felt that Draco was reptilian, not necessarily dragon, but to me, it sounds like they come from all over the place.
They do, but I'm not aware of any that were actually birthed or came through the Draco system. So in my opinion, not knowing them or what context they were speaking in, whatever, that doesn't feel correct to me. It doesn't feel true to me. And that would be one of those, misinterpretations based on everything in texts and whatever talking about Draco as meaning dragon and not ever having been corrected or have that information like, wait a minute, that's a little skewed. So dragons do come from lots of different star systems and realms. So the oldest being the original dragon realms, way back in the history of all the multiverse. But I have encountered dragons from the Rainbow Realms. There are dragons within the Middle Earth realms, the Deep Earth realms, all of the star systems. So in the book, I talk about the dragons of Orion, the dragons of Sirius, the dragons of the Pleiades. So in each system, even the Lyrans, there are dragons within the Lyran system. They have, how do you say it? Sort of like, seed is not the right word, because they inherently come from within a realm where they're being created, and it's a similar life form or life force that's being generated to create that dragon form or format, because it's really a format, it's a geometric format. So let's say, for example, there were dragons from the original dragon realms, and they were in service and doing stuff in the creation of the rainbow realms, that there might then be the potential that dragons within the rainbow realms would also be created, and then they're part of the creation of some of the star systems. And so they, just like immigrants here with humans, they move across the planet, they interracial matings or whatever, and so there's all these different new species created or new lineages created and moving about in that way, or they keep to themselves when they go to a new place, and they keep dragons coming from that realm, where there would be dragons that are originally from the Orion belt, and there are also dragons in Orion that have come from the dragon realms. Is that making sense?
Yep, totally makes sense.
So if
They're
a
no
great,
different than us, really.
yeah, they're really not. They're just a different species,
Yeah.
and they're just older. Humanity is very, very young as a species, and they're actually here. And why we're here, like us embodied as light workers, as the beings on the planet that have come to hold a specific light frequency to help humanity go through an ascension, so that they can keep evolving with the rest of the multiverse. Because right now everything's stagnating over in this quadrant. So we've got to get the light question back, so that there's all that intercommunication going on again. Humanity is very young, but if you look at, and I love the concept of the mirror of everything micro and macro, and this has been part of my classes. The dragons have brought this in consistently over the last 4 years, to pay attention to the micro version and the macro version and the super macro version of everything that's being experienced, because everything that's happening here, say on a global scale, is happening individually within you, and it's also happening on the galactic level, it's happening on the universe level, and it's happening on the multiverse level. So when you look at the migration of humanity around this planet historically, and how it's started as different little pods here and there, and they've slowly grown and moved here, moved there, and especially the United States being the melting pot, that is no different than, say, all the different star systems on the galactic level, where maybe Orion is Europe and Sirius is South America, just in correlation, as a way to look at and perceive the greater picture. When you can understand a system here, you can understand a system here, and when you understand a system here, you'll understand this one better, and then you'll understand your own realm in your own body better, because it always parallels. There's always a parallel mirror to look at in those levels. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've had in the last 4 years, of the material that's been coming through from the dragons and through my classes and programs, of the amount of information I've had in the last 2 years come in. I'm waiting to find time to get the next book together, because I have a folder this thick of notes on the ascension process, on what and how it's happening, and how it engages, and how we're actually supposed to interface with the rest of it. And it gets super exciting, super confusing. Like, there's a lot of times that I know I'm talking like up here, and people are going, "Oh, just missed that one. No, just missed that one." But it sinks in on some level. It's still dropping in, and that's the exciting part. Is it's all just seeds. It's all just coming through, and it's whoever's watching today and getting this, there's little seeds of light dropping in that are activating pieces within them, and they're going to start feeling that expansion, and then all of a sudden have a path or an opportunity with the dragons open up in front of them, where they can start running with it.
So what would you just say to somebody who had a dragon or dragons come into their field, and why are these dragons choosing to do this now?
I would say open your heart to connect with them in the best way that you can. Um, if you need help, so a lot of people don't have really good, what you might call clairvoyant or claircognizant skills yet, where they don't feel like they can communicate and connect with something that's multidimensional or just, slightly beyond their reach of this third dimension. They can feel a presence, but they don't know how to actually get communication. Um, to broaden that, just start believing that you can. Your mind is the tool that will open up everything. When you believe it's possible, when it becomes possible here, it becomes possible in reality. That's how you realize things. They become real because you allow yourself to intend or believe that they are, and then it can open up. And as that communication opens, you can ask the dragons if they're showing up in your field. It's because they're there to guide you forward in an aspect of your growth, in an aspect of your return home. So on your ascension path, where you're trying to regain your knowledge of the higher planes, regain your skills in telepathy, regain all that you know, all that wisdom that you have on a soul level, they're here to help you get that. And not only do they activate that, but they help pull what I call like dense energy and old traumas and things out of your field more quickly so that they're not holding you back. So if you had mud on your feet, the dragons can come and clean the mud off your feet so you can step clear much more easily than still having to carry all the mud around. That's sort of an analogy to make it make sense. So encouraging the communication to start. If you are already a meditator who's like, all right, I can feel them. I know that I'm going to get something if I just sit with them. Invite them to sit in front of you and start communing heart to heart, because our mind is what limits us. And when we believe that we have to know the words that are coming to get the message, we've lost it all. If you're getting a heart communication, you can feel that energy coming in. If there are words that you need, if there is actual thematic information that you need, it will somehow make its way to you after that interaction. They will make sure that a book or a movie or a conversation or something happens to get you that, if you're not feeling like you can get it yourself. But a big piece of it is just trusting what you get. You might get a single word like honor or nobility or presence. And you'll be like, okay, what do I do with that? And when you trust that, okay, there's something there. But it's that ability to trust what's coming through, that it's accurate, that it means something, that it's you're not just making it up. That can open the gateways. And I guarantee you that if there's one there's going to be more behind them that, all right, my guide is here, and your guides will change. Might be every couple of months, might be every couple of years, depends on your growth rate. But as soon as you start saying yes and listening and working with that, there's probably a row of guides waiting that they'll tag team and go, okay, I'm done with this piece. You come in now to do this piece. Just like your guides that got you to this point on your journey. Maybe they were angelic, maybe they were star beings, whatever they were up to this point, and now the dragons have stepped in. Just allow them to present the other pieces for you and say yes. And if you need help with that, the book has guided meditation, like directions. How do I meditate with the male earth dragon? Talks you how to breathe with them, how to say their mantra, how to go into that. It's got 13 CD tracks that go with each of the 13 dragons that are in the book to actually loop that in the background that helps you take you into that energetic space. You've experienced my Calling in Your Dragon meditation. It's a free download on the site. Try it out. Get that as an opening, because whether you need my help for a lot longer or you just need it to get you the push forward, it doesn't matter. That's what the tools are there for. That's why there's guided meditations. That's why there's the free ones. That's why there's all kinds of stuff. Like you mentioned earlier, you've got the Oracle deck. This came out because the dragons were ready to have 44 separate cards of communication with people to say, all right, you're now ready for more. Here you go. And getting those tools out to people. It's like, I only have so much time to do one-on-one sessions or classes or programs. So yeah, here's the tools. This will help you until you do need that push one-on-one, or this will help you, to start a group where you're meditating with each other and using that soundtrack to bring in a bigger experience. Everything's meant to move forward. So I would just encourage, like, if the dragons are showing up for you, do everything you can to actually pay attention to it just like you would any other guide that shows up for you. Don't brush it off. Don't be scared of it. And if you are scared of it, look at why. Let the emotion come up of what is it I'm really fearful of here? What is it I'm afraid of? Because if there's fear coming up around the dragons, there's probably some memory to unlock there that may be why they're present, helping you trigger that. Maybe you were attacked by dragons in some other place and time. Maybe you were a reptilian and there was a war going on and you were like opposed enemies. Whatever it is, like if you can tap into the emotions are a key to any growth. Let the emotion come up, feel it viscerally, let the emotion pour through you, and that's when the keys unlock too, to get little insights, little tidbits. And it really only takes tidbits to have a whole perspective point shift. That's the tagline on my Invoke Healing site, is a moment of clarity can change everything. It really can. A single moment of clarity can turn you this direction, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, there's the road home.
Yeah, yeah. And don't beat yourself up if it doesn't come right away. Like for me, it didn't come right away. Eventually, I just set it aside and did what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, boom, something activated me into, oh my gosh. And it just came in like that. So it'll come when it's ready.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's some people that are doing, and I don't know, I haven't gotten too deep into your stuff yet. I'm probably through a few months worth of your YouTube transmissions. People doing grid work with the dragons and assisting them. Can you explain a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah. So going back to what I said before about the dragons being the matrix keepers, the grid keepers, if you imagined everything that's in matter that you see, okay, first of all, is basically densified light. It's all light that's dropped down to a density that seems solid and visible. Well, behind that, the fifth dimensional structure and above holds a sacred geometric structure within it. So really, everything is geometric. So if we were to look at the planet and the universe and realize it's a giant grid, it's a giant geometric pattern that comes in very tight and small in the core of the planet. Here's the planet. Here's all the other star systems around us. Here's all the planets around us. Here's the sun and the greater central suns beyond that. So all of it is a geometric grid, essentially. And the dragons are the ones that at each intersecting point of that grid, there's a dragon that's been in service holding that point until now. And they're still there, but they are now transitioning and passing those off to the future guardians, which are the Lyrans. So the winged lions, all the I don't know if you've heard about any of the golden winged lions coming in. That's sort of another trajectory that we may or may not go down. But in that, they are the keepers of the energetic flow through those grids. So they've had a guardian at each intersection point, especially the major intersection points. So for the planet, in order to release her, what you might call veil or her covering, in order to move into more light, an expanded version, which is a fifth dimensional, all of those grid lines that have been densified down into maybe a sleep state or a chrysalis state, into a lack of flow energetically through those grids. If the dragons went into stasis, they went into hibernation, whatever word is fitting here for everybody. Those now need to be activated. And that's part of waking up the dragons around the world. I have been a part of quite a bit of that on the larger planetary grids, like some major intersection points or the points that affect the 12 dragons that are around the planet. But knowing that, like a spider web has what? Your main lines, and then it's got all these other lines in between, right? Well, if the main lines are all done, but there's no interface between all the little lines, the energy can't flow if it's not all lit up. So the beauty is that all the light workers on the planet have a different role here. All of us, be they dragon or otherwise, have a role to play And there are those that are dragon that are here to activate either the midline meridians or the really tiny the fine meridians, and they all have a piece to play. So when a dragon wakes up, say in Florida, that's fantastic, because wherever you go, if you're an activated awake dragon, or you're at least willing to walk with a dragon guide or guardian next to you, everywhere you go, you have an opportunity to be activating those finer lines within that template. And that's the reason that there's so many waking up to their dragon aspect now, because we're all over the globe. And I would say that the dragon hearts, we've got a grid activated that, because of the last 4 years of my programs, 5 now, all of those that have gone through and are really living who they be as dragon, they're activating that. So we have this web of light because they're all over the world. Like I've got from Australia to South Africa up to Canada, over Europe, there's a major overlay of those points being lit up. And so everywhere else that they get activated, it's taking it to that level too, because we have to have the entire spider web, if you want to call it, or the entire geometric lit up and having flow of energy operational. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, makes complete sense. Talk a little bit about the Lyrans. So are the dragons going to be doing a handoff to the Lyrans?
Yeah,
and
a lot of the dragons are super excited about retiring. They're like,
hey,
how many?
I'm about ready to retire.
How many tell me? I just had a discovery call yesterday afternoon with he's young, he's in his 30s, but he's like, I'm just worn out. This whole system, I've been around for so long. I'm just tired. I'm done. I'm like, I hear you. I know. And we're almost there. And, we're going to get there. But there are some very, very old souls who have been part of it from the inception and are like ready to move on. And so there is this shift that when 3D is complete with what it has been, there will still be a 3D vibrational experience available. It will look different than how Gaia has looked before, and that will be held forward, but the dragons will no longer be responsible for it. The Lyrans have agreed that once Gaia can move into her 5th dimensional framework, that they will step in and take over. So it actually started about 2 years ago. I want to say it wasn't long after what was called the event in March of, I think, 2019. I started seeing Lyrans coming in and meeting with the dragons. So there was like a team at each of the grid points where they sat in a transition period where, whether it's training going on of the dragon training the Lyran, or just a tandem cooperation going on for a period until the Lyrans are fully ready to take over and the dragons are fully ready to release, where I used to call it like passing the baton. And some of that has started happening in the further outreaches of the smaller points, where I started noticing a lot more dragons being available to come in to assist, like to be guides and guardians, because they were done with their role out there. They really wanted to continue to assist for Gaia and humanity. And so they like passed off their baton to their Lyran replacement and were coming in to the earth plane, into this closer zone to assist. And so I have started to see that the final pieces aren't there yet. And I know that I've had the White Lions calling me, interestingly, on the South African continent, or the African continent, but particularly down in South Africa, there is a global White Lion Trust. And the White Lions, I was there in 2018, it's 4.5 years ago, 4 years ago. And I didn't get an opportunity to go see the White Lions. It wasn't time yet. But I've had them coming in and working with me since 4th of July weekend this year, very directly in my meditation work. And they were actually part of my recent group, my Quantum Flight program. That's an 8-week deal. This was the first time that when I set up that sphere, there's always these 4 dragons that hold the space of the sphere when I create it. And it was 2 dragons and the two White Lions that I've been working with. They're actually embodied, they're physical White Lions on the planet in South Africa, and they were present in the sphere. And I've been being called back there to go actually sit in their presence at some point. I don't know how and when that will like work itself out. It'll be divinely timed, of course, but there will be a shift or a transfer of that contract to them, in which I'll literally feel myself retiring from the dragon piece that has been mine to hold here.
Oh,
So
and
they're taking
then
over. That's the Lyran system is all of the feline kingdoms. So whether they're more cheetah looking or jaguar looking, if you ever encounter the Lyran beings, um, I always sort of experience it sort of like the Casting Cats, the musical, where they're all these incredibly unique individuals that you're like, yeah, you can tell they're feline, but they're also beings like we are, but subtly different. And I have actually four, is it four? South Africans that have been through my program that are, I was so shocked the first time that I was able to realize this in reading with the women, um, that they're a dragon lion hybrid, where they're a winged,
mm,
like half lion, half dragon being. And I was shocked. I was like, I didn't know that was possible. I didn't, okay. And then I was able to see that their up lineage showed so that I could see the parentage of the lion and the dragon. And I was like, oh, okay. And they are coming from Lyra. So they are part of the transition team because they hold both energies. And then it will slowly pass to the full, just the feline being. So there are dragons that are part of the Lyran system that was like that for planning, that planning ahead for the eventual pass off, in preparation for that, for however that all got sorted out and created. We've gone on to a lot of different tangents today. This has been interesting.
yeah. Well, that explains why he's been so demanding about being here today. He's like, I'm going to be right here during this whole conversation.
Yeah, and they tip it. What's very funny is I have two cats. Also, one is very definitely lion. He is full feline, and the other is the pure dragon. And all of the dragons that I've met that are in animals are in cats. Um, and I got
Interesting.
this cat. I had people ask me multiple times over the years, I've got this cat. He feels like he's got dragon energy, and I tune in. I'm like, yeah, that he's dragon. And I'm like, whoa. And I never had one in my life, even though I had like multiple cats over many, many decades of my life. And I went to this shelter, just going, letting my boys look at the animals. And lo and behold, we end up coming home with this one because I looked at him and he looked up at me with these dragon eyes, and I went, oh my goodness, I'm supposed to take you home. Okay, another animal. But yeah, then typically I have to lock them out of this room when I'm in session or like doing a call like this, because they come, they want to be all over and in the energy field because they can feel it. The sphere
Yeah.
that we've built around us here is an energy that they just hone in on, like, oh, that feels good. I want to be at that.
Yeah, yeah. If I locked him out, we'd hear it the whole time. He's very vocal. But anyway, so I wanted to have a little fun before we wrapped up here.
Sure.
Should we each pull a card from the
Absolutely.
dragon deck, and maybe we can like set some sort of just ask the dragons to share with us maybe a little bit about what we can expect in the coming months. Do you think?
Okay.
Does that sound doable, or do you want to reword that
Yeah.
for me?
Why don't you, I want you to hold that intention for your deck
Okay.
of what energy to expect over the coming months. And I'm going to hold the intention of which dragon message would be the most useful or the most profound at this moment for those that are listening to this. We're going to catch it on the replay as far as a direct message from the dragons of
Love it.
the group sphere that is connected to this, what they want to share with them.
Sounds fabulous.
All right.
Okay. And I'm going to let you interpret the one that I pull. Ah,
Chartreuse. Beautiful. sustenance, vitality, uplift. So look at that. So the chartreuse dragon is what I don't go into in the book is the Pleiadian dragons. There's 9 of them, and the dragons have 9 chakras. So the chartreuse dragon is the upper wing chakra. So when you held your intention of, all right, what can we expect in the next months? Sustenance, vitality, uplift, the upper wing. We are lifting up into a space of new, into a space of revitalization, into a space of really being pulled forward into what we've been desiring. That's what I get from that with that chartreuse dragon speaking. And that's very interesting because I have, this is odd to say, but I have Fiesta-ware dishes. So there's a rainbow of dishes in my cupboard.
They're beautiful.
And I have been drawn for the last 2 days specifically to the chartreuse bowls, like when I'm eating my cereal or my like wanting to make something soup or whatever, it's the chartreuse bowls that I've been grabbing, and that's been the color in the last couple of days. So I love it. That's actually what showed up, and that's a positive, uplifting message moving into the solstice next week, into the new year. It's been a hard couple of years, and I think people are looking for and ready for that shift into upliftment, shift into like being able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like we've been in the tunnel for a long time, and I feel like that's showing us you're going to see the light now, because that vibrant green, that vibrant chartreuse is so lit up. And when we uplift our wings, when the wings lift up, it directly affects the high heart. When the wings pull back, it directly opens the breastplate of the dragon up, and the gold dragon saying, "Ha I'm going to fall forward." It directly opens up the high heart energy, which is our transition into living with wisdom in the heart of this is what's opening up for us. So, that's perfect moving forward. And I love, so moving, I'm just going to mention, because I just talked, the solstice coming up next week. For those that aren't familiar with my work or wanting to experience a direct meditation with the dragons, I've only done 2 others this year, which is more than last year. I'm doing a live guided meditation on my Facebook group. So for the love, capital LOVE, big caps LOVE, for the love of dragons, because I don't know how you got 2
there's
Facebook
a ton
groups
of
the same
them,
name, but there's another one. So look for me as the head of it. For the love of dragons, we're doing a live meditation 1:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday the 21st, so that we're in meditation at 1:48 p.m. my time, which is the actual solstice point. I was guided to do that. The dragon's like, yeah, and I did it exactly a month ago on the 22nd. 11/22 was a very profound day, and they were like, we need to do a live guided right now. So that was sort of an unexpected, told the week before, like, all right, do this. So I'm doing that next Wednesday. And if you can't catch it on the Facebook, or you're not on Facebook, my YouTube channel, which is Invoke Healing International, there's a dragon playlist. It will be uploaded on that by that night, and the replay is just as powerful.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody can join in for a experience with the dragons on the solstice, because I do feel that this is the 3rd in a row of some major gateways on the winter solstice. December 2020 was a massive shift. Last year was another really big one, and this one is like the completion of the trine is what I've been shown. So there's something big coming next Wednesday that's like the 3rd piece in a trilogy.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Right before you pull your card, because you explained it so well. You and I, before we got on here, were talking about, some people are talking about a solar flash or an event or 3 days of darkness, perhaps, before something happens. And you had a take on that I thought was very profound. Will you mind sharing that with everybody?
Sure. Well, one of the things that I've come to realize is I've also felt this, whether it's a flash, whether it's an event, whatever, there's an imminent event coming that is going to be a marker where it's very like literal and very key. Like we just turned a corner, like something just shifted majorly. I do feel like overall planetarily that there is that as a concurrent point for humanity, but I don't necessarily believe that we're going to all go through it at the same time on our timeline. So when we get to a higher perspective that's outside of time, it's where you can look and say, oh, that's all happening in a similar time frame or space, but that could be a decade when it translates down to our years.
Yeah.
So what I see happening is that there is this sphere of an event energy, and that we each have our own 0 point doorway or gateway that we go through on our own ascension process, where we get to flip through that. Maybe mine will be this year, yours will be 2 months after that, or 2 months before that. This guy over here will go through it, next year. Everybody's going to have that individual point for their own ascension, like gateway flip, where they actually realize. Some have already gone through it. Yeah. Some are in the process, but it's that knowing it's going to be related to and seen as the event or the flash once we're in that higher perspective, where we see it as like a culmination of, you can almost look at it like an explosion or a firecracker that goes off, but on the timeline, it holds a space of, oh, here's that space. But when you're in that, it might be a gap of 5-10 years. We don't know, because you can't translate it in the same way. So I don't know if I'm explaining it exactly the same way. I feel like it's close, but I feel like there's something that subtly changed in how it came through. But there is an event horizon, but we also have our own individual piece within that. So if it's not like you wake up and we're in 3 days of darkness, literally, where there's no sunlight for 3 days, or there's no, what would you want to call it, divine light or a sense of presence of anything, where we're just sort of in a stasis, emptiness, that could happen, but that's not how I perceive it going to be happening. I perceive it like we all go through our 3 days of darkness or a dark night of the soul, and we all go through, but it's encapsulated within a time frame for humanity that is seen as, from that higher perspective, that event point, that horizon that encapsulates it all.
You just explained my dream for me. Because for the past 3 days, there's been a lot of energy in my home since I moved in here back in September. And I've created a sacred space, but it also feels like, I don't know, my guides, whoever, everybody's happier to have more room, because we used to live in an RV for a couple of years. So now they're all celebrating here. It's great. We love it. But for 3 days, I would get up, and I'm generally, something's waking me up at 4:30 in the morning every day. And I would wake up and I'd feel nothing. It just felt like there was nothing going on. And I'm like, where'd everybody go? What's happening? So I had 3 days literally where it felt that way. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it ties into that.
Very well could.
Yeah.
Always a reason for conversations.
Yeah.
And what gets brought up in them.
All right. Remind everybody what your intention was again.
My intention is the message that is the most relevant or profound for the group that's part of this group sphere, that will catch it either on the replay or is, I don't know if anyone's even watching it live now, but when everybody that gets to watch it watches it, what the message is for them as a whole. Oh, I'm laughing because he's been very present lately. We have the obsidian dragon.
Oh, yeah. You pulled him recently. I saw something.
Yeah, no, this is very interesting because the obsidian dragon, I happened to mention the conversation I had yesterday with this gentleman in his 30s who was, tired, been around the block, been here a long time, very old soul, and like ready to retire. And he's very connected with the obsidian dragon. So I just find it interesting that 2 days in a row now I have the obsidian dragon. So just looking at the card itself, it's stillness, alchemy, and completion. That's exactly the 0 point doorway that we were just talking about. So this message to everyone here is about going into that stillness, because the alchemy will happen in the 0 point, in the stillness. And if we look at, okay, who's the obsidian dragon as far as a lineage? He's power lineage. The black dragon is more directly associated with our dimensional realm. Below that, the fire dragon. So if you were an upline from fire dragon, black dragon, obsidian, he's a higher vibration of the black dragon. The black dragon is all about shadow work. But, and this is very interesting because this conversation has happened a lot in the last 2 months. Even in my program that just finished, a whole piece came in about completion with the divine darkness, because we always focus on the divine light. And the obsidian dragon holds the keys to the divine darkness. And we often judge or look at darkness as negative, as the shadow, as the hard stuff, the trauma. And when we get past all of those pieces and get brought up into the true frequency bandwidth of divine dark and divine light, where they're right at that first point of separation from the crystalline cord, when dark and light first got into the point of separation, well, they're very, very close to each other. It's like the first cell division within human form. The first cells are so closely related. And then we divide. And all of a sudden we're down, not all of a sudden, over decades and millennia of historical devolution, we get to polarized oppositional, like crazy darkness, crazy light, right? Like here's Christ and here's the devil, and we got all this in between. So when we bring it back, we're close to that merge point, which is our ascension, right? When we're back to that place, we're going to move into crystalline. You're back to where that pure light and pure dark thread started. It's not super polarized. They're very, very close to each other. In fact, they are the same thing, but they're light and dark. And there's equal divinity within darkness as in light. But we always look at it as, well, it's Christ or the devil. Well, no, it's not. They're from the same source. And so this is where we get to look and feel the truth of divine darkness through pure obsidian. What do you see when you see obsidian? You hold it up to the light and you can see straight through it. And there's so much beauty within it. And that's what it's trying to show you, the stillness. The alchemy happens in the stillness. When you can accept the divine darkness and open to actually perceiving both masculine and feminine in that, because the divine feminine in her darkness, the void of creation, the space we go into, the galactic womb, her dark embracing space, it's very easy to go into that. But when we look at the dark masculine, that's where we associate all the bad stuff with power and control and awfulness.
Patriarchy, yep.
And this is where the patriarchy is trying to heal itself and come back into its divine darkness. And the true divine masculine can step right next to the divine feminine. Woo! And that's where the C point is. And this is where, boom, when that's together, we have our merge point. We go crystalline. Your ascension process, every one of us is going through moving from carbon-based, which is this color, carbon is this color, to crystal, to silica. Do you know that biologically, every one of our cells is going to shift from carbon to silica based? Carbon and silica are they're the same molecule. The structure just like subtly shifts. We're going from carbon to silica. That means silica is crystal. We're moving into our crystalline format, which means full communication through us. We live transparently. We communicate with everyone else through that crystalline network. That's what we are. So this is exciting too, because not only are we at the gateway with the upliftment, with there's the light at the end of the tunnel, but we're being shown your 0 point is through that divine dark.
Yeah.
Like that to me is like, if you got nothing else today, take this away.
Yeah.
Coming into home with the divine dark.
I love it. And real quick, why did the gold dragon want to come today? Because I know you always put the dragon behind you that wants to participate.
I do. I just feel like he's there's a regalness about him that is more embracing. I find him one of the ones that people have an easier time embracing. I'm not sure why. And maybe even just this particular rendition of him, the artist that I had do the deck, I just love how he came out with each one. But there's something about the gold dragon that he's power lineage. So he's above vibrationally even the obsidian. So he's actually revealing now. He's like, okay, so do you see? I'm holding the space. So the dragons always hold the highest space for us. He's holding the hierarchy space of this trajectory upward through the power lineage that is just expanded out into our sphere with fire, black obsidian. Gold dragon is just above him vibrationally. He's the fifth dimensional framework of that divine dark, which if we had a template, I always like to say, like, all right, black dragon's 3D, but third density, third dimension has multiple layers to it. So you could actually say, like, well, then the Middle Earth dragons are like 3.5 and the Deep Earth dragons are like 3.9. They're really close to breaking through. So if he's 3.5, he's 5. It's the same lineage. And so he's holding the framework, but there's also something about him that's just so embraceable. And his name is Jura. Jura, the gold dragon of Araya. There's many gold dragons. So when I talk about the elementals or the gold dragons and the silver dragons, there are many, many that hold that energy and that lineage. But the ones in the book, the 3 that are the archetypal or the primary, sort of like the archangels, they hold the specific core of that frequency. This is Jira, Zhi, capital R-A, Jira. He's the gold dragon of Orion.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Araya, thank you so much for being on here today. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And also, I just want to share with everybody, because you briefly mentioned it, you do a 15-minute discovery call for people to where they can schedule with you, and what do you do in that discovery call?
Yeah, actually, so I have 2 websites, dragonwithin.com and invokehealing.com. All of the dragon stuff is on the Dragon Within site. So you can get the book, you can go to the lair and discover all kinds of fun dragon stuff. That's where the Oracle deck, I've got Christmas cards, Christmas dragons are darling. All kinds of tools that it's not about selling retail stuff. It's about getting tools around you that hold a specific resonance. Because as you know, creating a sacred space, when you have high resonance things around you, it just holds that octave around you. So on that site, the book now button on either site will take you to a booking calendar. That will show you all the different options of sessions. But in that 20-minute free discovery call is just an opportunity to connect and ask, like, well, it's not a reading, but it is, this is what's going on in my journey, and where do I go next? What should I focus on? Where should I put my efforts into? What would be the best tool for me to start with? We just sort of get to know each other and have a little conversation, because sometimes you need to know that it's a good fit before you want to work with someone, right, and spend a bunch of energy or money and time on a session that wasn't a good fit to start with. Typically people that find my site are already a good fit, but it's a great way to go, yeah, you know what, I might not be the resource for you, but I can lead you to someone that is, or maybe you're looking for this, and I can at least head you in a direction.
What a beautiful offering. That is so
they're
great.
Fun. Actually, I do them every week, and they're a super fun way just to get to know people all over the globe. And what I love about it is that everybody's ready for their pieces at different times. And I know that, somebody might listen to this today and they might not have anything to do with dragons for another year. But when that pops up for them, they're going to know where they can go to get some answers. And that's why I created the Facebook group 5 years ago now. That is a place where people can come to know that they're not crazy. Because people tell me all the time, like, this is going to sound crazy. And that's how they preface what they're going to say. And I always have to interject and go, nothing is crazy in my world. There's no such thing, because there's endless potential in the universe. So nothing you can tell me right now is going to shock me. And they're like, oh, okay. And that's what I have that group for, so that people can share their experiences and know, you know what, if you met a dragon in the woods, or you had this dream and it opened up this for you, this meditation, or you saw this dragon in the mountains and all of a sudden you realized there were 12 around you and this crazy thing happened, it validates it, because you need that validation to keep going in order to wake up to yourself. And so that's the whole point of the group, is to have that place where, maybe you just want to watch and read other people's stuff for a couple months and go, okay, I'm not so out of it. And that's okay too. Not everybody's ready to actively participate. Not everybody's ready to take a class or be part of a book club discussion group or have a session or whatever, but at some point you'll need somebody next to you to either walk with you or push you. And that's a way to find whether it's me or somebody else in the group or a book or guided meditation to have those tools available.
That's so great. That's so great. I'll post all of your information below too, so people can just go find the links there as well.
Perfect. Great.
All right, my dear. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for your
It's been
time.
an
I really
absolute pleasure.
appreciate you.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.